So what happens when a crisis has no immediate end? For the economy not to collapse, businesses still need to thrive. But right now, the playing field for selling has changed considerably. Which begs the question, how should you adapt? The answer, it would seem, could well come from focusing on telling your story or stories as a business. And doing this involves documenting your journey and telling the stories of your customers, suppliers, and employees. Ultimately, those stories stand to help you forge strong connections with everyone with whom you're involved, as well as crucially, preparing you as the ideal vendor or partner for when the time is right for them to buy. B2B Storytelling in a Crisis, today on the 414 Live. Good morning, good afternoon. I'm so used to saying good morning. So sorry about that. Right, we've just dealt with our technical problems. Now we can start the show properly. Good afternoon. My name's James Rostance, and this is the 414 Live. Live finally on LinkedIn Live. We've had some hardcore technical problems today, and I've been trying everything, but we've now finally got on the air, and this is a good thing. So welcome along. So the 414 is for you if you are a professional B2B marketer, whether you're in-house at a company or agency side. And equally, if you're an SME business owner who takes an active interest in your company's sales and marketing. And sure enough, today's episode is very much for everyone, and hopefully a really valuable topic because it's, as ever, super relevant. And I'm really looking forward to having our guest on today, who's an international author, speaker, and has got a fantastic set of books on the subject. And she's even received personal accreditation and recommendations from the likes of Guy Kawasaki and Gary Vaynerchuk. So, with that said, I'd like to welcome live on the show, Jessica Gioglio, live from Media Vale. Jessica, good afternoon.
Thank you so much for the warm recommendation, James, and good afternoon to you too.
Thank you. Good afternoon as well. You'll have to please forgive me because it does get quite stressful when you have technical problems because I think as I was saying to you before we did the show, at the moment I'm taking on the role of presenter, producer, technical manager, and when all three things combine, it's a bit of a load. But you're cool, calm and collected there in lovely Media Vale in sunny London. I can see there on the monitor. So today's topic, we're going to be talking about, the challenges of selling right now as adapted by the virus. And by the way, our challenge for today is to not use the word unprecedented at any time. It could be, I know, right? It could be a difficult challenge, but seeing as that I think that's probably the number one word that's getting used at the moment, unprecedented, from this point on, we're going to try and not use it and find another way of doing it. Welcome along to our viewers joining us from both sides of the Atlantic today, because of course your fans and followers in the US and of course in the United Kingdom. And just to let you know, we will be doing a live Q&A maybe middle of the way and towards the end of the show, so that if you've got any questions you'd like answered to deep dive into what Jessica's here to talk about, then if you put them in the comments section, I'll be able to read them out live and put them to Jessica so that you can get a really good solid understanding of the topic involved, but also for you to plan and strategize and get your company on the path for where it needs to be for you to ultimately do well, given all of the stuff you've got to deal with right now. So with that said, Jessica, could I start by asking you then, could you give us your take on how companies should be adapting their selling right now?
Absolutely. You know, James, now that we can't say that word, that was the first thing I was going to say is, but how I will rephrase it is, these are incredibly challenging and difficult times for individuals and for companies. Mm-hmm. And what companies should do is realize that their playbook as usual no longer applies. most companies have crisis planning protocols in place, and currently those crisis protocols tend to favor kind of shorter form crises, maybe something that's a one-day incident, a multi-day incident, not an incident that really has no foreseeable end date in place. So my advice to companies at this time is to really think about the practical versus the proactive. And when I talk about practical, what I mean is that you need to share what your business impact is. So how are you managing against COVID-19? So how is your business faring? How are your employees faring? How are your customers faring? And everything from a practical standpoint could be, how can customers get in touch with you during this time? How can, where should they go for support? Is it through live chat? Is it through phone? And really being clear if certain operations are impacted. So telling that story, also sharing that employees are working from home, that you're following safety protocols, really zeroing in onto those specific kind of practical points that show that your business is responsive to the current times, empathetic to the current times. But then we can also look at the proactive side of it. And on the proactive side of it, we can look at, well, what can we do to be helping out? I think first and foremost, we cannot be participating in overt marketing and selling during this time. We need to be focused on, number one, how can we give back? If there's something that your company can do to support the relief efforts and supporting kind of the urgent healthcare need at the time, that's where I would first focus your efforts. And then I think secondary, then I would start to look at, well, what other kind of value add programs can I put on for my consumers?
Yes. I really like how some of the companies at the moment, say some of the companies, certain companies are really standing out because they've taken a very proactive, as you say, empathetic approach to dealing with this. And that's really going to make them remembered, isn't it, moving forwards? And I guess, if you will, that's also going to be part of their story moving forwards, which I suppose leads me to my first proper question then, which is, given that we're really here today to talk about B2B storytelling during a crisis, what is your take on storytelling as a concept and why it's good for companies to engage in storytelling?
Absolutely. So in how we define storytelling is, brand storytelling is the art of shaping a company's identity through the use of narrative and storytelling techniques. And specifically, the goal of brand storytelling is to facilitate an emotional connection with your consumers. So to let them in behind the fold, to show them a bit more about your business. And typically companies tell two different types of stories, so macro stories and micro stories. So macro stories layer into your company's mission, your why. Why are you in business? What are you set out here to do? What are the values that you're governed by? And how does this relate to how you operate your business, how you treat your employees, your customer support, policies, every layer of your business? Whereas micro stories are kind of that always on lifeblood of your storytelling strategy, where it really lets you to go deep into different areas of your business. And in times like these, I tend to default back to your macro story and your why. We're seeing a lot of companies pivot to focus on brand building efforts as well as urgent response efforts in this time. So I would encourage you to go back through your corporate mission statement, go back through your values, think about the principles that your organization is governed by. They matter more now than ever before. And I would lean into those principles as you shape the type of efforts and communications that you put out during this time.
That's spot on. Well, in that case, talking about values there, if a company already has those in place, I guess now is when those values automatically shine through. But what if companies haven't got a clearly defined package of values that everyone within the business knows what they are? What would your advice for a company to maybe develop values then in that case, so that
Absolutely.
they can help with the storytelling process?
It's a great question, because often we as companies, we have our taglines, we have our logo, we have our mission statement, but perhaps we haven't done as much work to define those values. And what I would say is in these times, really lean into the current climate. Understand that people are incredibly anxious. There's high levels of stress, high levels of uncertainty, and really think about how you would like to be receiving communications from business. Take a step outside of your company for the moment. Think about how you're consuming content each and every day. Most of us are downloading the House Party app. We're on Zoom video calls. I just went on a Zoom virtual birthday party the other night. We're trying to have these one-to-one or one-to-many interactions with people while we're at home in isolation. And we're also increasingly looking at how companies, how governments are responding to the coronavirus situation. So that's where I would focus on and say, how would we like our business to be recognized during this time? And honestly and bluntly, if you don't have anything valuable to add, I would recommend staying silent. However, if there are things that you can do, where I would start is, number one, look at where you can, how you can donate and give back. We're seeing amazing examples from companies like Zara and Ralph Lauren that are making hospital scrubs and masks. We're seeing in the UK, Brewdog actually is making hand sanitizer. So Brewdog makes beer. Now they're making hand sanitizer. Yeah. And a couple of other good examples I would look at too is big companies like Microsoft, IBM, Zoom, Salesforce. They've all completely shifted their narrative to adding value. So if you're in a business that is in a position to add value to your customers during that time, I would ask yourself what those ways are that you could do this. Where, for example, Microsoft is working with their Weather Channel property to share kind of coronavirus tracking. Whereas Zoom, everyone has started to use Zoom. It's traditionally more a B2B kind of business, but they have now seen a huge spike in consumer demand. So if you go on their Twitter account, they're retweeting and sharing all the clever ways people are using Zoom to stay in touch, as well as some of the really clever backgrounds that people are creating. So as you can see the backdrop behind them, and just people having fun, whether they're on their work conference call or catching up with family. So I would really think about that, because there's a lot of different ways businesses can add value during these times. And think about it within the lens of your business. How could you use your social media channels or other channels to really add value? And think about what feels aligned with your brand. And don't do it in a salesy way. Really think about, could I be hosting a lunch and learn on a specific topic that would help people during this time? Because as a B2B business, your customers are going through the same thing that you're going through. They're facing uncertainty. People are worrying about their jobs. Are there any ways you could help them upskill, learn new skills, really lean into some of those areas? And I think if you could focus in that area, whether it's educational or it's just kind of banding people together for kind of just a bit of conversation and a coffee catch up, a lot of that really makes a big difference now.
Okay. Well, given that we are doing this show live, and by the way, Kyle Hare, hello. Yes, we are live. So I thought I would use that as a good cue for. Yeah. You were saying right then that it's great and advisable for companies to look on how they can provide value, but. For some companies, what I'm thinking is that it's probably easier for them to think of ways that they can offer value than perhaps
Sure.
others. So how about we ask the viewers, could you watching in a line describe what it is that you do, and then hopefully we can put that to Jessica, and she can maybe come up with some suggestions for how you might be able to offer value, which would, and as this is how you put it, Jessica, wasn't it? That's you're then not focusing on selling, but then indeed flipping it to offering value, because ultimately that then makes up a part of your story. Does that sound like a good idea?
I love that. Let's do it.
Right. I must admit, that was off the top of my head then. I was thinking, should I have run this past you before we did the show? But no, I like the up for it now. So yes, in the comments section, can you just put in what your business does? Name is good. Name and what you do. And then we will, what's the word? Figure out an answer for you and using you as a case study for the topic in hand. Right. Oh, here we go. Oh, right. Okay. Yeah, let's do this one. So Susie Carter says that she creates killer content for B2B companies, and she's got a suggestion there. But so a content producer for B2B companies. What would be your take on how she could offer value? She's got a suggestion, but I'd like to hear your recommendation.
Well,
yeah.
It was the name was Susie, right?
Yes, Susie Carter.
Yeah, so Susie, I think what you do right now is hugely in demand, because a lot of my advice right now to companies is to think about if there's content that you can create that would be helpful to your end customers, that's really what you should lean into. So think about whether it could be, lunch and learns, webinars, virtual networking with a product expert. It could also be different social media live streams. One area I think that's kind of a tactical and practical way that content creators can add value is looking at frequently asked questions to customer support or customer success managers. If you haven't already done the diligence of creating videos and blog posts, or perhaps even step-by-step ebooks on how to do specific tasks or solutions, or diving into a specific area of interest, I think now is a great time to invest in that content, because people are certainly looking, whether you are kind of a SaaS software product, they're going to learn how to use specific products better for the scope of their job, or perhaps they want to learn an upskill in a new area. For example, if you're a software tool in the SEO industry, perhaps you can lean into more content to help people upskill in that area. So B2B businesses already do this on an ongoing basis, but I think now the onus is to look for some of those gaps, really analyze those kind of questions coming in, and create content that people can use now. Would be one idea. And then I think another idea could be as well, perhaps it's also putting employees and customers in the spotlight. So if your employees are they're doing amazing things in their community to help out the relief efforts, or even just sharing tips on, they have 3 kids and how they're coping working from home, perhaps these are types of content that you can share right now as well. So looking into this, perhaps even some leadership, lessons from your executive team for how they're steering your business during uncertain times. There's a lot of ways you can put a human face on what your company is going through, as well as your customers, because everyone's business is being impacted now. So if there's a way that you can shine a spotlight on your customers in a way that feels right without being overly marketing centric, I would also look for ideas there. But I'd love to hear what Susie has to share. So James, could you share her tips as well?
Oh, well, hers was actually quite a short thing. She was thinking of offering guides. That was her suggestion. But you know what? I did really like your concept there of focusing on your customers. I've always thought that making your customers the star is a great tactic. Well, tactic sounds contrived, doesn't it? A great strategy. There you go. So yeah, making your customers the star and talking about their successes is a really nice shout. Hey, here we go.
I think so. And James, just one point on that though, because I think, a lot of times I do think customer case studies are amazing because people always want them, but a lot of times they're written in a very salesy way. So I would focus now on shaping it more as a story. And you certainly can, still kind of put some, if you'd like to learn more, have a demo at the bottom of the piece, but really focus on story, business impact, and especially if you can get case studies that are more relevant to the current times, I think that would be helpful as well. And obviously we're only just starting the current situation, so that might be more of a longer tail opportunity there.
Nice. Hey, you know what? Something I'd like to throw in at this point. I imagine most companies have got this sorted, but if they haven't yet, and this is following off on the back of your bit there of making your content less salesy and about how you've been helping people. Whilst you might not have a call to action right now, this is very much where in having your Facebook pixel or the Google tracking pixel on your content and on your website in place will be such a good thing, because in the case of where they've maybe read about your case study and engaged with your content, if you've got your pixels in place right there, then when the time is right, 30 days later or whenever, you can then target those people who you knew were interested in your product or service with a targeted campaign. Just wanted to,
Absolutely. And to be clear, businesses still need to operate in this current climate. So, to be painfully clear on this, if you're still getting people ringing up your sales team saying, hey, I want a demo, that's great. You still should pursue those opportunities. I think where the twist is we're not doing as much outbound content now. That's like buy. The funnel is going to be a bit broken at the moment in terms of really bringing people into saying, call us now, get a demo. But I do think, if you offer a valuable service or a valuable software solution and people are reaching out to you proactively, the business is still running. But the advice that I would give is really working with your sales team to focus it more on one-to-one outreach. So, if a software, if a client is up for renewal, you're still going to go through the same outreach, but you're just going to do it in a very personal way and in a much more empathetic way than usual. And saying, reaching out, saying, how are you doing during this difficult time? Want to chat with you about this. What can we do? How can we help? Because I think that's where maybe there's a bigger business decision made. If all of a sudden every customer is saying they can't renew, they don't have budgets, that's something, through your executive team, you might want to think about. Do we want to offer a free service for a few months? Do we have runway to do that? Could this be our effort of giving back and helping out if some of our, customers can't use our solution, or even looking to extend your solution to companies at the heart of the relief effort as well.
Perfect. Okay, well, another quick example, if I may. Rich Dibbins, hey Rich, from Conscious Solutions. They're a marketing firm who specialise in digital marketing for law firms. How about those? A quick one off the top of your head for how they might be able to adapt.
I'm not entirely sure how much the legal field is being impacted by this. I imagine lawyers are always in demand. Speaking from experience as someone who's just hired one to finish her UK immigration. So
yes.
I've just become a permanent resident of the UK. And trust me, I think my lawyer's phone is ringing off the hook at the moment because of the lockdown and people being very unsure about visa renewals and things like that. So I think what I would say is, I would reach out to your clients and see how they're doing. Are their businesses impacted, and really work with them to see what you can do in an intuitive way, because what might end up happening is you're going to shift more to thought leadership type content. So if there's an angle that's related to the services they offer around the COVID-19 situation, that's something you might want to look at, but really focusing on where they can add value. And if they're noticing that their business needs to slow down, then I would focus more on the employee and human angle. Are they helping with relief efforts? Are they donating their services? How are their employees, how are their employees kind of coping during this time? And how can people still get in touch with them if they're all working remotely? So I would think about those things. And then, for if there still is marketing purposes, I think it's really going to shift more to one-to-ones, having coffee catch-ups with key clients and just having a chat, saying, how are you doing? What's the current situation? I think the more we can do that and really understand how we approach business conversations in this time, the better.
I think that's really good because, when you think, thinking out loud here, is that if I got a call from a supplier and it was a genuine one to find out what my situation's like, how they can help, maybe link to what they've done previously, that would really make an impact. So what I'm picking up from your advice right there is that this is very much a time to make quality connections and strengthen them on a one-by-one basis rather than necessarily just in bulk. But when you factor in your other suggestion of creating content around what you're doing and your the way that you see things happening from your position, arguably as an expert in your industry, those two elements combined, have I got this right now, is really what you're prescribing.
Yes, and James, actually, just to build off of that, if you are an agency, if you are a service provider, you also can put together some free advice for your customers as well on how to navigate these times. So, for example, if you're a marketing agency and you work with law firms, then why not put together a one-pager or just, a quick email just with some advice to say, here's some things you should and shouldn't do during this time. Here's what we recommend. If you want any more advice, we're here to help, kind of thing.
Perfect. Okay. Right, I should do it. Can we do another one? Actually, one more example.
Absolutely.
All right.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Hopefully the sunlight doesn't look bad for people on the video now. I'm sorry. The beautiful London sunshine.
No, it's good. It's good. Yep. I was just checking the camera angle. It works fine. It's good. Right, here we go. Mark Thompson. Wow, this is a really good one. Mark Thompson, shopping centre owner and operator. And his comment follows on with, communicate with companies who would ordinarily be leasing space in our centres and encouraging them to do so. That's a really interesting one. Hello, Mark. So what would a shopping centre owner and operator, what could they do?
So Mark, I think right now you need to lean into being very proactive. And I think one of the most important things during this time is sending a regular series of communications to people who rent space or are interested in renting space, and just giving them status updates on the current situation where you're at. Because as soon as the government is going to lift regulations, you're going to want to be staying in communication with, how you're currently kind of maintaining your real estate, how you're following the government guidance, and really looking at forecasts right now of when lockdowns are supposed to be lifted. And then once lockdowns are going to be lifted, what steps and measures you're going to take to get businesses back up and running. So I would certainly be that with one-to-one. And then what I would also be thinking about now, if I were you, is say we're able to open back up in April or May or June, start to think about proactive marketing efforts you can do once the situation is over. So I wouldn't necessarily need to communicate those to your customers right now, but the more you can start to brainstorm creative ideas to get foot traffic back into your shopping centers once the lockdowns are lifted, I think that would be a good thing to start thinking about with like grand reopenings and things like that, but not necessarily communicating those until the time is relevant.
Fair. Well, on the subject of stories then, could we look into why is it that stories are not just the way to go, but why are they more effective? I'm not putting words in your mouth there. Why are they more effective than any other way of communicating? I think that's where I wanted to go with that. So could you give me your take on that?
So storytelling is core to our DNA as humans. If you think about how when we connect with friends and family, we connect through stories. So even if you're having a virtual Zoom coffee or cocktail with friends and family members now, you're sharing stories about what happened during your day, right? So if storytelling is core to our behavior as humans, then why is so much business content very much like buy now, buy this, click on a link to register your interest? It feels inherently very cold. And if you actually want to dig into some data points around this, research from the Stanford Graduate School of Business shows that stories are 22 times more memorable than facts and figures alone. And we've written a nice article on the ROI of brand storytelling that I can share with you, James, if you want to share in a follow-up newsletter. So my co-author, Ekaterina Walter, and I worked on this together. But there's a lot of case studies out there that show that that when you use stories, the memory recall is higher, but there's also it allows people to get behind your mission, to see you as more than just a big corporation or even a small business that's just in it to make a profit. It shows the human side of your business. So that's really why I advocate for storytelling and how I work with companies on storytelling, because it just allows you to kind of go behind that curtain and share something unique that really increases customer loyalty and gives people a reason to get to know you better.
Thank you. Okay, I just wanted to highlight next then, Kawasaki. I hope I've pronounced your name right there. It's a new one for me. Kawasaki says he's starting a new business called localvalue.com, and it's all about local people spending on the high street and giving them tokens like nectar. Okay, so that's.
I love that idea.
I can see how that would help. Yeah.
Programs. I am such a fan of rewards programs and loyalty programs. Trust me. I think that's a great business, and actually still even a good business to be working on now, because people are increasingly staying incredibly close to home and local. The challenge is most of the businesses are not going to be open for the foreseeable future, but now is a great time to build this business, get local businesses to sign on, because once they're back in business, it's going to be great for you. So what I would do right now if I were you is start getting out there and sharing your story, sharing your vision for this. Really preface your communications with, I understand these are difficult times. People, the only shops that are allowed to be open are grocery stores, pharmacies, select restaurants. Share what you're building and share how you really want to give local businesses business to support them once they can come back on board. Because I feel like there's going to be a huge surge in kind of local pride for where we live, because for myself in Maida Vale, there's kind of two main streets that we would kind of go shopping on now. And I know every store very personally, and I know the people behind them. So you could even start to interview them and collect some content that you can share once you're ready to launch, and share the stories behind these business owners, why they founded their business, what value they provide to the community. And once you're ready to launch, you could have a lot of great content to share. But you also could share content in the time being with how the businesses that are currently open are allowed to operate and what they're actually currently doing. So that would actually raise a lot of awareness for people who if they can only leave their house once a day, they might not be super aware with every shop within maybe a 10 to 15 minute walking radius of them.
Perfect. Susie Carter, I think, has really grasped it right here, and in just 2 words with the symbol, story equals brand was her take and summarization of what we're covering right here. So
it does. Your story is essentially your brand brought to life, right? And I think Susie's hit the nail on the head right there. Is really what we advocate for, Ekaterina and I, when we wrote the book, is you need to have a strong sense of self, who you are, your brand, what you stand for, before you start telling stories, because it's really easy just to kind of go like, this is I'm going to tell this story, this story, this story. But if you do that, your stories are not necessarily going to be connected to your purpose, your mission, your values, kind of why you're doing what you're doing. And that's where companies actually get themselves into trouble, is they try and jump on a fad, but it's not actually aligned with their core values. And consumers aren't going to buy into that story. It's going to be a much better brand building kind of strategy and tactic if you layer into the core of your business. So think about, on the B2C side, we can think about, say, Tom's Shoes. They're mission driven, right? Their passion is about giving back, versus maybe GE, General Electric. they really lean into kind of science, technology, innovation, and they show incredible content with how they're kind of really being on the forefront of innovation. But they also have, almost a very B2C approach in kind of virtual science lessons online, really bringing kind of their consumers into people who work on, incredibly complex machines. They actually let employees take over their social media channels to have a day in their life, a week in their life. So there's a lot of different ways you can bring those values out, whether it's through kind of brand content, through your employees, through influencers, but it all has to layer back into that brand, that mission, and those values.
Nice. Okay, well, in that case, as maybe a 30-second summary, here's another challenge, a 30-second summary of what you would like everyone to take away from this, so and ultimately how they can sail through. So as a summary, how would you guide people to go forward with all of this B2B storytelling in a crisis?
Absolutely. Yes. So what I would say is right now, you need to understand that it's not business as usual. You need to take a step back, pause your ongoing ad spend, communications, come together as a core team to think about how you're going to communicate and tell your story during this time. I recommend thinking about practical versus proactive. So practical is how you're responding to COVID-19, your business operations, how customers can get in touch with you, how you're treating your employees, and how you're treating your customers during this time. And then you can also think about the proactive, where you think about what can you do to actually add value to this situation, whether it's through relief workers, through monetary donations, or through helping your customers with value-add content. Remember that communications are more important than ever. Put people first, business second. Remember that you're going to have to make do with less. So I understand budgets are being slashed. A lot of the research is saying marketing budgets are being slashed by as much as 50% or more. So it doesn't have to be slick, overly produced content, but invest strategically. And then also lastly, embrace one-to-one community building. So the more you can get out there, ask your customers what they want to hear from you, use tools like Zoom, potentially even the House Party app, as well as other conference call systems to have some of those personal connections. And don't be afraid to get on the phone and have a coffee or a cocktail with your customers, because now is the time to get personal, to really be empathetic, to listen and learn, and to, most importantly, to help.
Perfect. Excellent. Jessica, well, hey, look, thank you ever so much for joining me on the show today. I really hope that's been good for the viewers, but also for you as well. Could you give a quick mention for your book as well, for people who would like to maybe find out more about that? What are the titles of your books?
Yes, so I have co-written 2 books with the fabulous Ekaterina Walter, and the most recent one is called The Laws of Brand Storytelling, which is about storytelling strategy, how to shape your storytelling narrative and the types of stories you can tell. The first book that we wrote is called The Power of Visual Storytelling, and it's all about how you can tell your story visually on social media.
Boom. All right. And I guess Amazon would be a good start for getting.
Yes, both books are available on Amazon, and we do have audiobooks for both of them on Audible as well.
Boom. All right. There we go. Jessica Gioglio. Have I got it right that time?
Close, Gioglio, but
Gioglio.
You know
what? There we go. It's all right. I've got a funny surname.
It doesn't bother me in the least.
I like to try. But hey, Jessica, thank you ever so much for joining me on the show today. You're a star.
Thank you.
And if you've enjoyed watching, then please do visit the414.net to check out some previous episodes, but as well as to subscribe by email. There we go. Well, thank you very much for joining us today. A quick shout out to Graham Everett and Alex Hawkes. Sorry we didn't get a chance to get to do your questions, but we've got another very topical show lined up for next Friday. Hopefully we can look after you then. In the meantime, my name's James Rostance, and this has been the 414 Live. Thank you for watching.